All right, welcome back. Oh, hold on once. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the 7th week of the Tech Bytes JavaScript session. We are glad to have you guys back. It looks like we're getting a good crowd in from our Python session, which is always nice to see. Good to see you guys coming back. So without any further ado, let's get started. As always, you guys know who we are. My name is Rayan Siddiqui. Check my website out, rayansiddiqui.com. No need for these lengthy intros again. Andrew?
You guys know me as well. I'm Andrew Choi. I also run the Tech Bytes program. I code as well as Rayan, and I also have made a number of projects. Check them out at andrewchoi.info.
All right, so let's get down to today's agenda. We got a lot in store. Now, over the past 2 to 3 weeks, we've been learning how to make that transition, learning that syntax like we started today in the Python session for how to transition from the block coding in JavaScript to actually typing out code and learning about the different files and all that in a JavaScript project. Now, today, we're going to learn about another terminology and apply it. We've already learned about the terminology, my mistake, but we're actually going to be applying it now into typing code, that being loops. And then we'll make a transition to making a quiz game. Now, if you remember, we made a similar quiz game in Python using block code about 3 weeks ago. So we're going to try to emulate that and make it in a web app format and use something called the document object model, which we'll get into in a little bit. So let's get started.
All right, talking about loops. Now, if you're familiar with that, in block coding, it is pretty much the same. In this case, we have a for loop, which means it is going from x equals 0 to x equal 9, or the first x variable lower than 10. And in the console log on the right, we do see that in action. We see 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 9. And using loops, we are able to use essentially the same code multiple times.
So it's that same idea, guys. Remember, me and Andrew have been iterating this same idea. The concept is the same. That piece of code inside the for loop or while loop will execute until a condition is met. And we'll do that same idea today once we start making a game. Now, this is a big aspect of today's lesson. And we want to make sure that you guys totally understand this. That being the document object model. The DOM for short. Now, the document object model is it's like an interface or a way for us to communicate to the HTML. Remember, the HTML is the structure of our website, while the JavaScript is how we manipulate and code our website. Remember that? Well, the DOM, document object model, is how we can manipulate the structure of our HTML using JavaScript. Now, think of it like a tree. You can see this diagram right here showing the different elements and the linkages between each element. And for example, think about it like, say you want to change the text being displayed in a header or in a paragraph, right? Well, using the document object model or the DOM, you can change that text dynamically using JavaScript. Now, if this sounds a bit foreign or a bit confusing right now, don't be scared or afraid. We'll show you. It sounds a bit more scary than it actually is typing out. And yeah.
All right, so we're going to make the quiz game from Python, but in the typing format. So we're going to have a button where the user clicks to see the question. Think of this as the communication between HTML and JavaScript. In HTML, we have an actual button in the HTML sort of layout, the DOM, if you will. And once the user actually clicks on it, a message is sent to the JavaScript. And we go on to number 2, have some logic, which evaluates if the answer is correct. JavaScript will receive the input from the HTML and evaluate if the answer is correct. And of course, in order to display this, we have to use the DOM property to manipulate our HTML. We are going to use the JavaScript to interface with the HTML via the DOM. And we will see this very shortly.
Yep. So how about, guys, we open up our new website. It is the same website we've been using for the past 3 weeks, jsfiddle.net. Let's open that up. And as a good practice, I would highly recommend that you guys make an account with JSFiddle so that you can save our weekly Tech Bytes fiddles. So if you have any questions or you want to refer back to something, you can easily just hit the button, go to your fiddles, and check out all the previous ones.
Quick question by Redeema. Can you put the link in the chat? Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Here it is. So I'm going to call mine just JavaScript week 7. You can call it whatever you'd like. Add a description. We are making a quiz game from Python. All right, so if everybody can confirm that they're on the website, and we'll get started. Cool. All right, so it looks like we got a good number of people there already. So we want to make that quiz game, and the basics Andrew discussed is we want to display a question. This time we're not going to be using like the prompt, or actually we could be using a prompt and then display in a paragraph, like in an ID, display the question, and then maybe have like another ID for if you got it right or incorrect. And okay, so how about so Andrew, should we do it through the prompt, ask for the answer through the prompt, or should we use like a text field? What are you feeling?
I think it would actually be easy to just use the prompt.
Okay, yeah, instead of making another HTML element.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's get started. First things first, we gotta make a button. So let's see how much you guys remember. Try to do it without looking. So remember, it's a less than sign, button, greater than sign, and we'll say, call this button start game. Run this code real quickly. We're able to see that our button is there. And guys, as usual, if you get lost, ever anything happens, like your website crashes, for instance, this fiddle will be posted to the Google Classroom for you to check out later. All right, now we got our button. Now let's make a paragraph tag. Remember the IDs we talked about last week, where how about we ask the user for their name first, and then we'll go to the questions. So let's make a paragraph tag right here. Like that. And let's add an ID to it. So let's do ID equals username. Now, if you've forgotten, the ID is how we will manipulate our HTML. Look, if I run this for now, we're able to see that nothing is being displayed. If I add some letters, we can see that they're being added to our HTML. However, we want to dynamically, or using the DOM, which we learned about today, we want to add a value for our name later. So how are we going to add that value? Well, we got to get the user's name in the first place. How do we do that? We got to make a function and link that to our button. So let's head on over to our JavaScript. Let's type out the syntax function for a function, remember. We'll call this start game. Remember, it's the open parenthesis, end parenthesis, no colon because it's not Python. If you're just clicking from the Python session, but remember, it's the brackets. Voila. Let everybody catch up for there for a second. All right, so now we got to actually get the user's name. So let's make a variable to hold that value. So let's say var user name. We'll set that equal to, remember, in order to get the user's name, we're going to be using a prompt today instead of a text field. So let's simply type out prompt, parentheses, quotation marks, and we'll just say, hey, what's your name? And if I run this, oh, nothing will happen. Well, that's because we haven't linked the function to our button. So how about we do that? If you've forgotten, remember the way we do that is copy the name of our function, head on over to before our button closes, specifically right here, space on click, on capital C, so that equal to our function name with the parentheses, like such. This way, this on click is allowing us to link our function to whenever it will run, whenever the button is clicked. Now, if I run this, we see that I'm prompted. Hey, what's your name? Now, we're able to get our user's name, but we aren't displaying it anywhere. Well, this is where the DOM comes into place. Now, we've got our user's name, but we want to display it to this tag, to this ID we already have, right? To this paragraph tag. Well, the way we do this is, now, bear with me now, this is a pretty long statement if you want to follow along. So here we go. Document dot get capital E element capital B Y capital I D parentheses quotation marks for which ID we're accessing, that being whatever you call this ID, so username, drop that in there, dot inner capital HTML equals the username. So just to make it look nice, I'll just say hi username. Now, since this is a pretty big line of code, I'll drop it in the chat if anybody has any questions. And if we run this, we're able to see that we're asked what's our name. I'll put my name in, and voila. This is how we're able to manipulate our HTML. Now let's do, if for more visualization purposes, say I set this equal to a random word, right? When I run the program, this is what is being displayed. But right when I enter my name, notice how I'm able to dynamically change my HTML. And using the DOM, which we learned about, this really big line of code, we're able to change that paragraph tag, the content of it, to whatever we'd like. All right, so I'll pass it on over to Andrew. Do you want to get started by asking, prompting for the first question, evaluating it, and then displaying like another ID?
Sure.
All right.
So we're just like getting the ID. Hold on.
Let's prompt the user for like.
So yeah, prompt for what again?
Like the first question, and then we'll use an if statement to evaluate.
Yes. So we will be doing. Really, you can just copy and paste this prompt right here. Hold on, no, why I didn't copy and paste for a second. That's weird. Okay, well, I guess we'll just like call it raw. So for var, we'll just call this question 1 equal prompt. I'm just trying to think of a question to ask off the bat of my head.
What language are we learning?
Yeah, that's probably a good one. I'll give some people time to actually write that out. Okay. So now that we have the actual question, we can actually do the answer to this question. We can actually get some logic going on with it. So let's actually do that right now. Question 1. If that question equals, we'll say, JavaScript, we'll perform some code where I'm not going to write down now. Else if question 1 equal, well, I think else will probably work. We don't want to like have a different answer if we have JavaScript. I'm going to let some people catch up to that. So really, this is just what we've been previously doing with if statements, but now we are doing it with something that the user actually inputs. All right, now that we've actually done that, let's actually display whether the user got that correct. We are going to really replicate what we wrote down previously with the get element by ID. Again, it's suggested you copy and paste, but I can't do that over the internet connection at the moment. So you'll have to make do with what you already know about copy and pasting. And we can simply say something on the lines of correct. And alternatively, if that is not the answer, we can write down this. Again, a more intelligent solution would probably abstract it so that we wouldn't need to write this down 2 times in a row. But right now, this will do for what we are doing. This is fine for what we're doing right now. So if you are done with all of this, can we get some confirmations in the chat? Sure. Take your time.
All right, and Andrew, if you want to hit run and see how it goes.
Yes.
And so we hit start game. It asks for a name. I'll put my name in. And the first question. So say we put the right answer in. What language are we learning? We put JavaScript in. It says correct. And there we go. Now, we've gotten to the point where we're asking one question. Now, next week, we're going to learn about loops and lists, through which it'll be much more efficient to do this. But for today, let's take a different approach. And how about we ask the user 5 different questions, and how about we create a variable called score, and then we'll tell them how well they do. So how about we head on over back to our HTML guys, you can copy and paste this line below. We're going to change the ID to our score display. We'll call it that. You can get rid of whatever text is inside, like such. And there we go. Now, instead, if you want to, just space it out real quickly, the first question, instead of displaying correct or incorrect right away, how about we just alert for now if you got it correct? And then we'll add, how about we do that first? Alert correct or incorrect. Same concept, we're still checking if their answer is right or wrong, but instead of displaying it on the HTML, we're just going to alert it. And this time, we need a variable to keep track of our score. So how about we declare a new variable? Remember, it's var. We'll call it my score. And we're going to start the score at 0. And whenever we get a question right, we'll add 1. So we'll just do my score equals my score plus 1. Alternatively, you could have done a shortcut is my score equals plus equal 1, but that's such a neat trick. And how about 3 questions in total? So now the cool part is what we can do is just copy this statement till the point we're asking a question. All right, so now we can just copy paste that, change the variable name to question 2. And for the second question, how about we ask, what week are we on? Or Tech Bytes. Now, remember, we're evaluating the answer to the second question. So we have to change the variable in question to question 2. And the right answer is, we'll just say 7. There we go. And now, finally, for our third question. So let's copy and paste that statement once again. Change the variable to the third question. And our final question will be,
what language did we previously teach?
Yeah.
Or what other language do we teach?
Yeah. Just copy and pasting that same syntax, guys. And remember, this time the variable in question is our question 3, which we're evaluating, and the right answer for this question is Python. Now, once we've got the logic and we've gotten the user's responses, we want to display this MyScore variable. How do we do that? Well, let's get that huge line of code again, which you can just copy and paste below after all the questions have been asked and evaluated. But this time, remember, we're not manipulating the username tag. Instead, the score display ID. And we'll just change it to, let's say, you got plus my score out of 3 questions correct. This way we can check how many questions we got right. Now this is a bit important. See how we're using that string combination here, concatenation, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm not pronouncing that correctly. But we're able to add our variable in the middle of a string to display it. Don't forget that semicolon. Now if I run this, asks for our name, I'll put our name. What language are we learning? I'll put a right answer for this one. Correct. What week are we on for Tech Bytes? Let's say I put a wrong answer and I'll put 500. Incorrect. And what other language do we teach? I put the right answer, Python. Correct. And we should see the total we got right being displayed on the HTML, which is 2 out of 3, and we are able to see that it puts our name, and we got 2 out of the 3 questions correct. And there we go. So guys, this was a lot of different code. I will be posting this to our classroom as always. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment right now, chat below. All right, so that is going to wrap up our session for today. We talked about loops. We'll be putting them into context more next week once we learn about list and array in JavaScript. But today's main purpose was to just learn about that DOM property of how we can use our JavaScript to manipulate our HTML. And for next week, we'll be talking about parameters in our functions and arrays and list, and potentially even beginning a multi-week project. So if you're having a good time, we highly recommend that you guys come back. If that question, yes, the code will be uploaded within the next 10 minutes. We'll get the updates out on the Google Classroom, and the YouTube video will be out within the next couple of days as well, if you want to go back to any specific parts. Hopefully you guys had a good time. But other than that, we'll catch you guys next week. See ya.
Thank you for coming.